the nature of a liberal pluralist society like ours is that social control operates in other ways. In the kind of media system we have today in the US, you don't need to control every journalist. You simply need to guarantee that the main channels that inform the American public, and that means primarily broadcast and cable news on television, that as long as those main channels are securely within the doctrinal framework that you want, that is, they're securely within the story you want to tell about the war, you can allow dissidents, you can allow critical journalists to operate on the margins as long as they're kept on the margins. And the Pentagon system in the Iraq War really did keep critical journalists marginalized. The main flow of news from the television reporters was perfectly in sync with the Pentagon story. So the Pentagon didn't need to control every last reporter in the field. So it allowed, for instance, what were called unilaterals, that is, reporters who traveled outside of the embedded system. And it allowed those journalists to operate. Now, there was harassment of unilaterals. There was the understanding that the Pentagon would do nothing to protect the unilateral journalists. And in the case of the Pentagon, of the American military actually firing on the Palestine Hotel in Baghdad, there was actually a direct U.S. attack on independent journalists. Right? But they didn't have to control absolutely all journalists in the field, because the main channels of information to the American public were securely in the hands of friendly journalists, the cable and broadcast news folks. And when you control the system that way, you can let dissent on the margins happen, because the American public is never going to see most of that alternative view. It's not going to read most of those stories that might cast some doubt on the Pentagon's story.